For anonymous's sake, I'm going to call my friend Blanche. We met during my sophomore year of university. When we ended up taking the same French courses, we hit it off really well, and we ended up going to our campus's French club events. We became best friends. But the thing was, the closer we got, the less I came to be like Blanche. I know it sounds weird, but she would tell me secrets, like how the thought of yellow cake turns her on, and what she would want said cake when she encountered it. I'll spare you the unpleasant details. She expressed these feelings with Asian cuisine as well, so things were really weird. Once we agreed to work on a group project, only for her to literally do nothing, she seemed oblivious as to why I was angry. But I digress. She began copying me in various ways, gestures, tone of voice, siding with my opinion on various topics when she didn't do so before. I ended up switching my major because I guess the upper level classes for my degree weren't in demand like the intro courses. I found out I could study abroad with this degree and applied for a scholarship, but the trip fell through due to low interest. Fortunately, I was allowed to use the money on another student abroad trip of my choice. Blanche suggested to me that I go on the same trip as her and one of our mutual peers. I figured I may as well, since we were still good on terms at this point. One thing you must remember, Blanche went on the study abroad trip before. This is important to know later. In the weeks leading up to the trip, Blanche insisted we drive to the location with the mutual peer I referenced earlier. I asked her what she had packed on her last trip, and she would lie about various aspects. For instance, I asked if we needed to pack cookware, and she insisted we did not need to, but then would say she regretted not doing so last time. It was just a weird thing to lie about. The day we depart arrives, and it's the day before Mother's Day. I had not studied abroad before, so I gave my mom a hug and let her know how to contact me in case of an emergency. As I gave my mom a hug, I see Blanche glaring at my mother. I tell myself I imagined it and just pack my stuff into her older-than-dirt car. As we drive to pick up the mutual classmate, she tells me my mother threatened her when I was away. Now I know this is a lie, not just because my mother isn't a violent person, but I was with Blanche the whole time I was packing. If my mother made a threat, I would have heard it. I told her that she was a liar, and she just blew off my comment. So we pick up the mutual classmate, and he has a hard time hearing us up in the front seat. We try to keep him in the conversation, and he mentions he can't live without technology. I tease him and ask him, so what would happen if we just dumped you in the woods right here, where there's no Wi-Fi or signal? And he laughed and explained he'd be helpless. Blanche takes it one step further. Blanche asked how funny it would be if we just dumped him and we put him in the sex trade and traumatized him for life. Dead silence from us both, but she seemed oblivious. It was an awkward ride. We got to the hotel and I wake up hours before my classmates the next morning. As I mentioned earlier, it was Mother's Day, so I give my mom a call so she knows we made it all right. Halfway through the call, Blanche sends me a text demanding to know where I went. I hear her feet angrily pound against the ground as she approached, so I told my mom I'd call her back later and hang up. Time skipped to when we get to the campus. She immediately ditches me and the classmate to do her own thing, while we aimlessly tried to figure out where to go. We had a meeting before to our apartments, but since the classmate and I weren't familiar with the campus, we could not find the building. Minutes before the meeting, Blanche texted me and asked me where we went, and the two of us skated into the meeting with minutes to spare. We caught up with Blanche, and she asked where we went. I explained my phone plan. I was only afforded up to so many texts and couldn't reply. I asked why she ditched us and didn't tell us where we were going. She then lies and says she had neither of our phone numbers, even though she had texted me 10 times prior. At this meeting, we had to pick up 3 classes of our choice for the program that aligned with our interest. I was tired of Blanche at this point, so when I saw her copying my answers, I would change them. When I saw her erase and copy my choices again, I reselected my classes and flipped the paper over. I just needed space from her. The 3 of us go shopping, and Blanche insists we pool our money so we have more spending power. It seemed logical, and since I discovered she lied about having cookware supplied for us, I wanted to buy pots and pans. She tells me there's no need. One of our roommates would loan us hers and suggest we spend 1/3 of our funds on wine. We bought a few frozen meals and pasta and returned to the apartment. I cooked dinner, and we have a ton of leftovers, which I pack up since no one said they wanted any. Blanche asks if she can have some of the leftovers, and I tell her if we still have some on Friday, they're all yours. Not only were my leftovers gone before Friday, but so was all my food that I purchased for myself. I had no more money to go shopping. Blanche then tells my roommates one evening that I had a variety of weapons and was liberal with how I used them. I was horrified and embarrassed. Not only was this a lie, but she seemed to think my displeasure was amusing. She then goes on to tell my roommates she studies psychology, and my mother would frequently consult her for advice on her cases. She then casually suggests that we cook meth in the kitchen. I was horrified, and so were my roommates. I try to laugh it off like a joke, but Blanche is dead serious. I scold her and say that I'm not interested. My mind was made up at this point. We needed a new apartment. At first, the university thinks my request is foolish, to say the least, but when I mention meth, they immediately agree to find a new apartment. So I go back to my apartment to start packing. Blanche got the notice. She was reported for potential drug use, and she's told I'm leaving the apartment. She pushes me into my room and blames one of our roommates for reporting her, and says that this report is why I'm being kicked out of the apartment. I try to convince her our roommate is innocent, but Blanche wasn't about to hear it. So she convinces both of our roommates to go to the main office and demand answers. I keep packing and wash a few loads of dirty clothes. As I climb the stairs back up to the apartment, I run into Blanche and the roommates who are consoling her. The main office told her I reported her. I really wish they had not, because they triggered a monster. Blanche starts violently staring me down, like she's ready to fight. I play it cool when this happens. I realize she owes me the money because she won't be giving me a ride home. I take the money and switch apartments. I thought this was the end, but I was way off the mark. This wasn't even the trip. This wasn't even the tip of the iceberg. Each week, the university had mandatory meetings in which they would take us on field trips of sorts for cultural immersion. Blanche would always sit in the meetings where I could see her and would stare at me for the duration of these meetings, with my roommates babying her like she was a scorned saint. At the end of each meeting, everyone had to sign up for a trip that we discussed at the meeting. Blanche would stand immediately behind me in lines and sign up for the same trips I would. This is not a crime in and of itself, but one of the trips, she would either stand immediately behind me or in my line of vision, glaring at me through her sunglasses. On one trip, I discovered the town had public Wi-Fi, so as long as you were in town limits, you could access the internet for free. So I caught up with a couple of friends during lunch. A mutual friend of ours let me know Blanche had been sending everyone in our social circles messages about how I tried to physically attack her, and he sent me the screenshots of what she had sent him. Just then, I get a text from the witch herself, Blanche. I look up from my phone and see she is standing immediately behind me with a roommate. Instead of talking to me verbally, she gestures towards her phone, indicating I should text back. I just tell her this: look, I can't text, because, like I told you, I have a limited number of texts I can send. I am not going to waste them. Furthermore, I don't feel comfortable talking to you, especially not here. If you want to talk, we can do it at the university. I think we are on the same page, but not 5 minutes later, the mutual friend who sent me the screenshots updates me. Blanche immediately texts him saying I violently yelled at her and threatened her. I figured it's best to just never be in the same place as her, to avoid these accusations. So that's what I do. At the weekly meetings, I wait for her to sign up for something, so I can pick up something else. I ignored her, but one day, she followed me into the ladies' room and tried to grab me by my arm to talk. I narrowly avoid her grasp, but she tried to follow me to class. I told the university about this and they let my home university in on everything. I just wanted to let them know she was just following me around and trying to get me to engage with her. My host university ended up barring her from future trips because of the drug accusations. I'd like to say this was the end of it, but she tried to get me fired for reporting to work. That's a story in and of itself, so I won't share it here. A week ago, my mom called me and told me to check my LinkedIn account. It was a weird request, but she told me Blanche was spying on her LinkedIn account. Sure enough, Blanche was lurking on my account. We both blocked her, so I hope that's the end of it. Blanche, let's never meet again. A couple of years ago, I spent most of my time skating. I didn't have many friends I could skate with, so I was always on the lookout for new friends to skate with. There was this really friendly guy at the skate park who seemed really motivated on making new friends and making somewhat of a skate crew. He was really motivated on getting skate clips and photos to put on social media. We got along, and he was really friendly, so I figured why not network with a new friend to skate with. I gave him my number, and he seems perfectly normal at first. He hit me up a few days later, and I picked up, and we skated. The whole time, he still was completely cool and normal, nothing suspicious or strange at all. I dropped him off, and everything was cool. A couple of days later, While I'm at school, he texted me asking if I wanted to skate. I was busy and did not reply. Within an hour, he sends me multiple texts saying something like, "Why aren't you answering me? What did I do? And I'm sorry." I said screw it, and that night asking to skate. Even though this may seem like a sketchy decision to hang out with him, the whole time we hung out, he was completely normal. He was the same friendly, motivated guy I met. However, after I dropped him off, things got worse. A few days later, the same thing happened, where he texted me, I got busy, and he blew up because I did not respond. However, this time I did not reply at all, that day or night, and this set him off even more. He sent me hundreds of texts over the next week, going from aggressively clingy, as seen before, to completely delusional. We met when I was 19, but he texted me delusional shit saying, "Remember when we were kids and you'd come over and we'd hang out? You'd have your shirt off and we'd play?" I felt sorry for him. I knew he was a guy with a good heart, but he just suffered from serious mental illness. I just wish he had more people in his life who could help him control his issues. Later, he started calling me on and on. I have hundreds of voicemails from him, and the creepiest thing about the voicemails is that they are all silent. He would call my phone and sit there silently, leaving voicemails where I could, at most, hear him breathing or hear a fan in the background. This went on initially for a few months. I thought he lost my number or forgot about me. But then, a few more months after this all died down, he started calling again, but under unknown, so I could not block him. This happened off and on for about a year. There was one incident where someone came to my house, went through our gate, and vandalized our front yard. We are not sure if it was him or not, but after that, we installed cameras. That was the worst it got. Mostly he called on and off for a year. There was one instance where he used his mom's phone. Back before he started calling under unknown, I replied to the text asking if Justin was okay and saying he needed help. Then he texted me from his phone saying don't bother my mom. This cooled down after a year ago. I'm not sure what happened to him, but I hope he got help and is doing okay. Okay, here we go. I moved in a new apartment last April. This was my first time having a place all to myself, so I was stoked. As soon as I move in, I notice the place smells like cigarettes. Maybe it's from the previous resident, so I buy some plug-ins and assume it will dissipate. A week later, I'm still dealing with the smell. I'm a relatively petite 20-something woman, so I don't make a habit of knocking on random doors. Anyway, this guy answers. I ask if he's smoking cigarettes inside and explain why I need it to stop. He's super forward with me, immediately kissing my hand, and asks if I'm single. I tell him I am seeing someone, and he says to let him know if it doesn't work out. All's fine for a week. Then the smell creeps in again. I start getting very pissed off and text the neighbor. He's all apologetic. Says his friend was at his apartment while he was at work and forgot to tell him the rules. Who are these people with zero home training? Turns out the neighbor had been homeless for a time and lets his still homeless friend crash with him. I'm initially sympathetic, but only to the extent because they are fucking with my health. I also work from home, so there's basically no escape from the toxic smoke. Fast forward a few months and I haven't had to deal with anything. Hadn't even seen the neighbor for a while. Assumed he moved, and I was happy about it. Then he suddenly pops back up, knocks on my door to tell me this stupid story about how he got arrested while on the local college campus because he looked like this guy who was stalking a female student and had to sit in jail for 3 months. Now, I'm not stupid, so I took all that with a grain of salt. Also, years prior to this, the guy had apparently been in a car accident, suffered a traumatic brain injury, and is autistic because of it. This kinda explains why he seems to not understand normal boundaries or pick up on nonverbal communication. Now he's making a habit of knocking on my door at random times to ask me to drive him places, or if my boyfriend and I want to go ice skating with him. This drives me insane, because I work from home and I just hate unannounced visitors. But this guy lives directly behind me, knows what car I drive, my boyfriend drives, and is familiar with my dog, so I hesitate telling him to leave me alone. February, he gets arrested again on campus on Valentine's Day. While he's in jail for 3 months, his homeless friends realize his apartment is empty and unlocked, so they have a free place to stay, a free place to chain smoke, and make my life miserable. I call management multiple times and they completely brush me off. I'm sick, unable to work enough, pretty much irrationally angry at this point, so I start knocking and telling these people they have to stop. At one point I go over there, talk to a woman I don't recognize at all, and notice a massive tent in the living room. There's basically a homeless camp in the apartment next to me. After going over there twice in a day, because the smoke was so bad, I lose it at these people, my boyfriend with me, so I hold nothing back, screaming, crying, stomping around, telling them they have got to stop fucking with my life like this. Thankfully, my boyfriend knew the 2 people that were there while I was on my triad. We look up their criminal records, not pretty. B&Es, petty theft, possession of methamphetamine, great. Now I realize why they insist on smoking cigarettes inside. Probably to cover the smell of something far sinister. Yeah, you wouldn't know that unless you actually smoke crystal meth yourself. No surprise, I'm going insane. Fast forward to May. He's out of jail again and back apologizing to me. Leaves me a stupid note and a fake plant to say he's sorry. I stop answering the door if my boyfriend is not home because I don't want to deal with his stupid ass anymore. Finally, at the end of May, he moves out. Management puts up a notice on the door saying no trespassing. Police will be called immediately if anyone is seen entering or exiting this unit. My nightmare is finally over. I moved into a new house over the weekend and just paid the first month's rent. I signed a year lease. The house itself is okay for being built in the 30s. A lot of work to be done. Weird layout, unfinished porch. Okay, it's a shitty house. But I had to take what I can get. When I saw the house posted on Craigslist, I immediately called the number listed and asked if I could view it that day or another day during the week. Right off the bat, the dude gives me a bad vibe. Not really creepy yet, but definitely annoying. We arranged to meet that Saturday so he could show me the inside of the house. He texted me every day multiple times to make sure you are absolutely certain you want to view the house because I don't want to waste my time. I assure him several times that I literally live 5 minutes away and I will be there on time Saturday, no question. I should mention I found the house for me and my elderly father who was in a wheelchair to move into. The landlord was out in the yard waiting with a huge smile on his face. I waved hello, and then he went around to my passenger side door to help my father out of the car and into his chair. The landlord's face immediately changes to a scowl as we approach him. My dad holds his hand out for a handshake when he just looks at me and says, "I thought it was just you." While completely ignoring my father, I awkwardly try to explain I didn't think to mention it since he didn't ask. So he goes ahead and shows us the house. It's livable, so we give him the deposit. All is well. We moved over the weekend and paid the rent on the 6th. The landlord told me he would need access to the house today to do some plumbing work. I say no worries, but I'll be at work, so I'll leave the key above the door. I typically get off of work around 12:30 and told him as such. At around 10, he texted me again wanting me to confirm that I was absolutely not going to be there before 12:30 because of a safety hazard. I say yes, I will be there after 12:30. Well, I actually ended up getting off pretty early. I was headed home at 11 and figured I'd just pop my head in and tell the landlord I was here, but I would stay outside. Now remember when I said the layout of the house was weird. It's because the front door leads directly into a bedroom. This is my bedroom. There's another door to the left, and that's the living room, which leads into the kitchen and back room, bathroom. So turn the doorknob and it's unlocked. When I walked in, all I see is my landlord just hightailing it out of my room, through the living room, kitchen, back room, and out the back door. I then see his car race out of my driveway. Weirded out, I walked back into my bedroom, only to find my underwear drawer open and strewn about. My nightstand was open too. I don't know what to do at this point because I'm kind of stuck here. It's hard to find housing with my credit, and even harder finding a place that is wheelchair accessible. So creepy landlord, as much as I'd like to say let's not meet again, I know I'm going to have to deal with you for 12 more months. Please leave my underwear alone, you fucking creep. Alright, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead, like, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching.